The culture fit job interview for UX designers is the hardest one to prepare. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what makes it so hard to pass this one, what is being checked in the reality, and what strategies can I recommend. My name is Ines, I'm a principal product designer and a hiring manager with 15 years of experience, and this video belongs to my free mini-series on YouTube about job interviews for UX designers. If you've missed the previous videos, then go and check them, because here we are almost at the end of the hiring process for UX designers. So let's go. Now, in the first video of this mini-series, I was talking already about the culture fit phase. And I was talking there already that this phase is the hardest one in order to predict in how many job interviews and in which format it will manifest itself. But this phase is definitely there in every hiring process, because the goal of this phase is to understand if this particular person will fit this particular team and company. So this phase can take a form of the longer initial call with someone from the design team, or it can be split to multiple interviews with different team members, or it could take place as a longer interview with the team. It could even be the full day that you spent with the team in the office, and so on. As I already mentioned, the goal of this phase is to see if you will be the fit for this team, and that's why, by the nature of this goal, the judgment that a hiring manager makes is pretty subjective. Because unlike the previous phases where we had certain boxes to tick, like, does a person has 4 projects in their portfolio? Yes. Do these projects have all design stages? Check. But here, because I don't really know what person will be the best match for the team just yet, I need to make an educated guess or even go with my gut feeling. And this is exactly why this phase is the hardest one to prepare for. Yet there are some tactics that you can use to feel more confident and more prepared to what is coming, and I'm here to lay them down for you. I recommend you to start by studying companies' values. That may sound overly corporate and bureaucratic, but really companies, they try to live up by their values, at least the bigger ones. Luckily, they are pretty easy to discover because companies usually list them down on their websites. Then what I usually do with them is that I make sure I read them, and then I note and copy particular word expressions that a company uses to talk about themselves or to describe their values. Then there is one trick that I usually do, but I only recommend you to approach it if you know that you will sound authentic or if you will practice it upfront. Because what I do is that I take those expressions and I use them in my speech during job interviews. Here, of course, I rephrase them, I integrate them seamlessly in my speech so that I don't sound robotic. But the thing is that many people who work in big tech companies for longer periods of time, they live up by those values, because those values, they are constantly repeated during their workday. And actually many people, they don't even notice that they use them. But even if you are not going to quote them, because I do not recommend you quoting them, you will still sound like a person whose values matches to their values, who has the same lingo. And I think it works. It does not cost me anything, but of course I only do that when I feel safe to use these expressions. How else can you prepare to the culture fit interview is that you can study the profiles of the people who are working there. Because if you are applying to a smaller company, they might not have those values listed down on their websites, and also they might not take them that seriously. But definitely every team, every company has its values, even if they are not written down. If you don't like the word values, you can use something like vibes or the common feeling that is shared among people. And another way how you can understand this vibe is by just browsing through people's profiles on LinkedIn or other social medias. Many people feel that it is a bit like stalking, which I disagree, because those people, they have public profiles, especially on LinkedIn. They put their information that they want to be seen. And you can make use of this information to really understand the mindset and the vibe of the team and the company that you are applying to. Same as with corporate values, I make sure I read through what they post there and I note particular expressions that I might then potentially use during my job interviews. The second way how you can prepare to culture fit interviews is to practice behavioral questions. We were talking about the behavioral question when we were discussing the initial call, so go and check this video if you've missed it. The other name for behavioral questions is HR questions, and they have a bad reputation. Because if they are asked in a formal and robotic way, they might sound really corporate. And these questions can take a form of a general question about your knowledge, say, what do you think is the difference between UX and UI? Or they might give you a hypothetical situation, say something like, your colleague disagrees with your design proposal, what would you do? Or they can be referring to your past experience and take a form of a question, something like, tell me about your best achievement and something like that. Or another way how they can be put is when they ask you about your vision or preferences in terms of designs. For example, it could be a question like, what application do you consider having the best UX UI experience ever? So you see, there are a lot of ways how these questions can be asked, and that makes it so hard to prepare to what is coming. But I figured out the way for me to prepare and the way how I teach it on my job interviews course for UX designers. So I split those questions in two categories. The first category is the questions I cannot prepare for. Those questions are general questions like, what is the difference between UX and UI? I mean, you can prepare that, but it's either you know that or you don't know that. And I don't really think it makes sense to prepare for those questions and to rehearse them, because there are just too many. So what I do myself to prepare and what I teach on my course Job Interviews for UX Designers is the storytelling techniques. There are numerous techniques that you can try, you can Google them, you can practice with different mentors or just recording yourself on a video, but the one that I really love is very simple. So in this technique, when you get a question, you first say something like, oh, it is such a fantastic question, let me think about that. By saying that, you are buying yourself time to structure your answer. And your brain really needs it. And then what you can do is that you can list down the ideas that you have, or you can really list them down only mentally. Both ways works. It is what is convenient to you. And we're also agreeing to wait until the person lists down what they want to say. Then a real trick here is that you say a hook. A hook is something that will keep people listening and that will make them interested in what you're about to say. And a hook could be anything. It could be a controversial idea, for example, or just your opinion that you are about to explain. The only thing to care about is not to provoke where it is unnecessary. So, for example, if a question is about the future of UX profession, and you will start with something like, I think the UX design profession will die out in 2 years. That might make people really interested in what you're about to say, but first of all, if that's not something that you are going to back up further, you would sound like a scam. And second of all, we are not on television, so you might want to be less provoking and polite. And then, once you've given your hook, you start to lay down your arguments. The one way how you can do this is by saying on one hand, on the other hand, it is pretty simple. The other way is you can say, I have 3 points that I wanted to explain. And then you say point 1, point 2, point 3. So you see, it is an extremely simple technique, and I'm sure you will master it in no time. The problem only is that on a job interview you might as well forget, because we are there in a stressful environment. So it is really crucial that you practice these techniques before you jump on an interview. And that's why on my course Job Interviews for UX Designers, we also have a separate workshop where we focus only on those techniques and how to answer behavioral questions. But if you will master this technique, I'm sure you will give the best answer that you could, and this answer will be also easy to follow. Then the second type of behavioral questions. Those are the questions about your past experience, about the situation that you have encountered at work, about your achievements, about what inspires you, and those you can realistically prepare. There is an unlimited number of questions that could be asked, but they will be all referring to only few situations that you can prepare. It's your best career achievement. You can really list down 1 or 2 ideas of what could it be, and if a question will point into the direction where you would need to highlight what are you good at, you can bring those situations. Then the second situation is when something went wrong on a project. So again, it is something you can prepare upfront, and you can think about how can you wrap up this whole situation so that you will sound as a winner, even though you might did something wrong. And by the way, you are not allowed to say that you've never had a problem on a project, because this way you will sound too inexperienced. And this is not an impression that you want to give. And also, we are always focused on challenges and how people are overcoming those challenges, because the way how you dealt with problems is a predictor of your future behavior, not your previous successes. The third situation that you can prepare when something went wrong in a personal relationship with somebody. It could be something when you had a conflict at work, or when your colleague disagreed with your decision, or something like that. It is a bit different from the situation we discussed previously when something went wrong on a project, because here your answer would revolve not about the design practices and processes that you might have implemented, but about the techniques that you used to make amends with this person and to move forward. So if you will prepare those 3 situations, you can already cover most of the questions that could point out to your past experience. And if you will already have the story from an angle that you want to take, it will be easy for you to answer and to fit it to any question that might come. A small tip for you here: use ChatGPT. Just describe your situation and ask to turn it into a favorable angle. Because eventually, after every conflict or a problem, there should be some learning that you should present. But this learning should not be far-fetched. And I think ChatGPT does an amazing job in terms of turning the real situation into the corporate language. And also rehearse your answers on a video, because this way you will also hear if you sound robotic, if something is off. And this is exactly why we practice it on the job interviews for UX designers course on a separate workshop. The link to the course will be down below in case you are interested, so go and check if there are cohorts open. If not, join the waitlist. By the way, if you like this video and you want to receive more videos like that, then hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell. This way you will get a notification when a new video comes out. Then the third and the last way how you can prepare to those types of job interviews is by thinking about your life story. And when I'm talking about the life story, I'm not talking about the introduction necessary. By the way, we had a conversation about introductions in the video about the initial calls, so go check it out. But what I mean here is a broader story and the consequence of events that led you to UX design. You might not necessarily want to start every introduction with your personal story, telling that you were interested in design since the high school and things like that. That might sound too long. But during the conversations on job interviews that meant to test your culture fit, you will have an opportunity to dive deeper into your background. And that's why some companies, they name this stage live interviews. If I'm not mistaken, Shopify does this. So ideally, your life story should have at least one concrete event that brought you to UX design. And this event should be something memorable and outstanding. You might think right now that you did not have this story. Maybe you've heard about UX design on a meetup, or you have a friend working in UX design, or you found a content creator like me here on YouTube or on Instagram. By the way, subscribe to my Instagram, it's also fun there. And you might think there is nothing to talk about, but I assure you it's not true. Even if you found out about UX design from YouTube, for example, and you watched a couple of videos and then you got interested, there was still something in you that replied this call. Because thousands of people, they watch content about UX design, but they are not interested in it. So what is there in you that made you think that you might find a flourishing career there? So ideally, you have to have this story in your head and be ready to tell me about it. And also, it's best when you rehearse this story to make sure that you tell it from the right angle, that your body language and your facial expression, they matches the emotions that you are telling me about. And this is the definition when somebody says you need to stand out on a job interview. When you are in the hiring process already, that means that your portfolio is enough. And the only way for you to stand out is with the story like that. So really spend some time, maybe do some reflection, maybe talk with your partners or friends, like what do you think, why I am going to UX design, why do you think it matches me, what do you think about me? It sometimes gives you a lot of ideas. But try to uncover that before this particular interview stage. My next advice is particularly useful for career switchers. So if you had a non-UX career, and then you had a point when you turned to UX design, it's the best when you can explain how your past career matches UX design. For example, you might be working in accounting and then the real story, you got burned out, you don't want to do accounting anymore, you want to do something visual. Of course, you cannot tell me the story like that. That will not make you stand out and will not make me excited. So the better way how you can tell this story is by saying that you were into accounting because you always loved numbers and data and things like that. And during your life, you thought that visual design or graphic design is something that is not for you because you are so focused on precision and data. But then you found out on a random event or from a random article that UX design could be about numbers as well. And that made you interested, and then this whole story unrolls how you made a transition, and now you use your love to numbers and precision in UX design, which makes you unique. So really think about that. Not only it will help you to stand out in a real way, it will also help me to understand what type of a person you are and what you are interested in. Another way to approach this preparation to your life story is to think about what motivates you now. So you had an event that made you started, you have a connection with your previous background or your personality, but then you are here today and who you are as a designer as of today. So what fascinates you? What books do you read? What exhibitions do you attend? And things like that. And I also recommend thinking about it upfront, because on a real job interview, you might have a blackout. Because if you are like me, you don't really remember the names of the authors and even book names that you read. And exhibitions are even worse, because I don't even make an attempt to remember the name of the artist. And it will be really hard for you to recall this information on a job interview. So it's best when you list it down and you can retrieve this information upon request. So those were the preparation tactics for this type of a job interview. But again, we cannot know what is coming. It could sometimes be very structured and formal with the dumb behavioral questions, but sometimes it could feel like a very informal, easy conversation where you don't really think about how would you structure the answer and things like that. But anyways, if you will prepare everything that I listed here, it will make you more confident anyways during any type of a job interview. Because in my opinion, we do need all those preparations to achieve one thing, to be confident before the start of the job interview. Because if you are confident in your knowledge, in what you're going to say, in your facial expression and the body language, you will at least start a call on a higher note and will create the better first impression. Because then, of course, something might go wrong on a job interview and you will lose your confidence and you will not be sure that you are showing your best as a UX designer, but at least you started from this point of confidence and you did what you could for this interview. And this is also the ultimate goal of my course, Job Interviews for UX Designers, wherein we practice exactly those things in order for you to know what you're doing and to be confident on a job interview. The link will be down below in the description. Check if we have cohorts open. If not, join the waitlist. Before we close this conversation, I really wanted to mention only one thing, is to never take a rejection personally. Because a lot of things might go off. Maybe there is an internal hire, or maybe they're just not sure and they want to search more because the hiring manager cannot take a decision. This happens more often than you think. Or maybe an interviewer had some biases and the company did not coach them on how to conduct interviews at the first place. But anyway, there is nothing wrong with you. It is really important that you remember that, so not to lose confidence and to continue trying. And this interview type, the culture fit, is the most complex one in this regard, because even if sometimes you think that you did well and you hit on with the interviewer, you might still get a rejection, and this could be quite disappointing. And that was it for today. I hope now you know what makes the culture fit interviews so challenging and what tactics can you use to gain the job interview confidence. And if you like this video and you want to master job interviews, then hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell. This way you will get a notification when a new video comes out, and go and check the previous videos in this mini series. And if you are interested in the job interviews course for UX designers, the link will be down below in the description. See if we have a cohort open. If not, join the waitlist. And I see you in the next video.